nicely between the D and the G. He's finally here today.
Oh yeah,
He's finally here.
He's finally here today. The O and the D.O.G.
It's been a minute.
How you doing, man?
We must be talking about football today, huh?
yeah.
Yeah, that should already that's already a dead giveaway. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the D.O.G. podcast. I'm joined here with Drew. What's up, man?
Poppin'?
I'm here with O.C. the G. And then a special guest that doesn't have a microphone right now. he's kind of just sitting in with us.
He's our producer for the day.
The producer for the day, who doesn't do anything. But OC, you're joining us today, man. You wanted to talk about your boy Baker Mayfield. So earlier today we got the notifications, or was it yesterday? Right. Yesterday, we got the notifications that he got traded to the Carolina Panthers for what seems to be pretty much a fourth-round pick, because it's a conditional fifth-round pick for 2024, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Pennies on the dollar, right? Who in your mind is up on this deal right now?
Apparently the Panthers. They're
the Panthers, right?
They must be the only ones that believe in him.
Yeah.
Nobody else wanted him, so.
So what are your thoughts? Do you think he's going to revive his career over there?
No chance.
Not a chance.
So now you have the first and third picks from that draft on the same team, Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield, you know?
Yeah.
But it's like two guys, you know, that tried to revitalize your career. But it's funny that their owner, Dave Tepler, he makes moves. Yeah, he wants that franchise to win. Like, I think he's like the richest owner in the NFL, or at least top three, you know? So he's willing to spend.
Right.
I just don't know if this was the right way to spend the money when you just went and got Sam Darnold a year ago, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Didn't they give up a second, fourth, and sixth round for Sam Darnold?
Yeah, it was.
They gave up some quality stuff for Sam Darnold.
They actually gave up a good amount for him. Do you think Matt Rule's got the play calling style that's going to fit Baker Mayfield?
Well, he comes from that line of. He was at Baylor, so it's a lot of Big 12 football, so spread offense. So it might fit to what Baker used to do at Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure Matt Rule was probably there at Baylor towards the end, or during the time that Baker was at Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. So it might fit the system, you know. But again, it's like the league is dependent on, are you accurate enough, and can you get the throws on time, you know, to your guys. And health-wise, you know, you got C-Mac in the back who hasn't been healthy like the past 2 years. So you're going to be reliant on the quarterback position.
Right. Well, we all know that running backs, they come with a limited amount of mileage, right? Yeah. Like they're almost it's almost like having a Ferrari in the backfield, which it's nice and shiny when it's working. But as soon as that engine blows out, man, it's going to cost a lot to get it home and replace that versus like a Toyota Camry that's sitting in the garage, right? It's going to be able to put 100,000 miles on it. Do you think Robbie Anderson is sitting there and he's going, "Oh yeah, I'm excited about what's going on right now"?
Well, he's the same one,
no.
right? For some context, those of you listening, Robbie, they had alluded to the fact that what if Baker went to Carolina last year, right? Yeah. And he had put in the IG comments like, "No,
the full Michael Scott meme right there. No.
And now that's his quarterback, you know? Well, potentially, if he can beat out Sam Darnold, which I still think Sam Darnold's the better of the two. So,
well, that's what's interesting is that they're keeping Sam Darnold on the roster, right? They haven't made a move with him.
No.
So, do you think it's going to be an open competition?
It has to be at this point.
Do you think maybe they kind of brought him in just kind of to be like, "Hey, I want you to light a fire under Donald's ass"?
It could be, but and they got him for a cheap price, so it's like,
pennies on the dollar, right?
Well, yeah, it's because Cleveland did it to themselves by signing Watson, because then now they, you know, to force their hand. Baker was like, "Well, I'm not going to play for you." So simple as that. So get me out of here. So everyone knew there was it was either they were going to cut him, or they were going to get him for basically nothing.
Right. Well, then that's kind of the bottom line, right? Is kind of Cleveland kind of played their hand like super early, right? Yeah. Like they kind of played their hand, they showed what they had, and then they were like, we're bluffing. And Carolina's like, nah, I don't care.
Well, I think there was only like a select teams that were going to take him, and then when they mentioned, Seattle, Carolina, then Seattle, it came out earlier in the week, they're like, we're not interested. Like, we're good.
Right.
We'll suck with Drew Luck, you know? So,
yeah.
Drew Luck.
Drew Lock.
Yeah,
Drew Lock. Yeah,
who got toasted this weekend by the tennis's Twitter page?
The U.S. Open Twitter page.
What happened?
Oh, you didn't see that?
No, not at all.
Oh, bro, it was pretty funny.
What happened?
They were posting like highlights, right, of the U.S. Open, and then some like Seattle Seahawks fan commented like, "Oh, not a real sport.
This isn't a sport," some shit like that.
And then the U.S. Open, whoever runs the Twitter page commented back, says the guy that has to sit through 17 games of watching Drew Lock.
Oh, brutal.
Got him.
Brutal.
No response after that.
Yeah. So.
But yeah, I saw the notification today. I mean, I thought it was kind of interesting that the Panthers. I guess what I find mostly interesting is the timing, right? They kind of they waited, and then they finally, as soon as guys were getting ready to go to OTAs, as soon as training camp was starting to get rolling, they went ahead. They made the move. Do you think it's going to benefit Carolina, given the time that they made this trade?
Well, yeah, the guys are off right now, so there's no training camp for another 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So perfect time, to get him in, give him the playbook, see what he can learn right before training camp starts. I mean, and like you said, his pennies on the dollar. You're just basically taking a flyer on him.
Pretty much.
He's on the last year of his deal, so it's boom or bust for him. He either plays really good and works himself into another contract, or maybe Carolina signs him, or he's just going to be a career backup for somebody else.
Do you think he fits that locker room?
Just because of his arrogancy?
And that's what the bottom line was. It was like, Baker, okay, I mean, you're a decent enough quarterback. Like you saw what he was able to do with Cleveland. And then, but the biggest question mark on him was just, one was his arm, and then the other one was his personality, right? And then it's just like, do we really want to bring this jackass into our locker room, have him stir shit up, just for him not to even win the starting job? Do you think it's worth it?
Well, I think Cleveland hit a lot of his deficiencies because he had that two-headed monster in the backfield, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then I guess you kind of had weapons with Njoku and then some of their other receivers.
I mean, he couldn't even make it work with Odell.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Like, that was one of the big issues why he left, right? And so it's like he's gonna get lucky if he gets Christian McCaffrey for at least half the season. So
it ain't gonna happen.
That's why I'm saying, like, it's not. I mean, he
had the third ranked offensive line in Cleveland, and now he's going to the team that had the second worst offensive line last year. They picked up some guys in the offseason, but it's not like they made drastic changes to improve the offensive line. McCaffrey's hurt every single year. He's so good. He's always hurt. You would have to rely on Baker Mayfield to take over, and he couldn't do it with weapons in Cleveland. What makes you think he's going to do it with average Joes in Carolina?
Right. I feel like Stefanski kind of tailored that offense to his style, right? Which wasn't his style in college, but it was like more under center, two backs,
play action fake,
a lot of stuff to keep it simple for him. Because he knew, like, I don't know, he wasn't hitting the windows, or he couldn't get the timing down.
Do you think it was making the reads, or do you think it's the lack of athleticism from Baker, like the lack of arm strength?
Well, yeah, and then at OU he had all, like, it's like basically a Bama, he's playing with nothing but 4- and 5-star guys, so it's easy to dink and dunk, hit the like the short stuff, the quick stuff, the screen game, the quick stuff out of the backfield. In the NFL, you got to let stuff develop,
Right.
You're going through first, second, and third reads, and Baker's not that type of guy.
Well, in the NFL, I feel like when it comes to the quarterback positions, because we've seen so many guys who are super successful in college and then can't do anything in the NFL. And you good, dude?
Yeah.
Can you hear everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just kind of sounds like there's an echo right here.
A little bit of an echo. I could turn his mic up a little bit more.
Is it just me, or does it sound like there's an echo?
Oh, no, it's easy. It's just you. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds way better.
Now you sound a little bit better.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, so there's plenty of guys who are successful in college, and then when you get them into the NFL, I feel like part of it has to be with, like, guys aren't able to anticipate open windows, right? Because in the NFL, like, the windows are so much tighter than they are in college. So it's almost like you got to see a window open up before it even opens, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I feel like that's where a lot of guys in the NFL struggle. It's just like they don't see that. They're so focused on trying to make the right read. They're so focused on one not turning the ball over and then not getting sacked. So there's like 10 different things that you got to think of every single play post snap. And I feel like Baker just doesn't have that understanding.
Well, Baker was like you said, it was a lot of self-reliant on his athleticism.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had a bunch of guys around him that were probably the top guys around the country that made him look better. So it's, in the NFL, everyone's an All-American, you know? Everyone's a top guy at their position. They were the top guy in college. So now
top
it's
guys
like
in high school all the way through,
so it's like
right?
best of the best now.
Yeah.
So if you're slacking in your game or you're off by a second or two, like it's gonna get exposed. Like there's no way around it.
Right. Now let's go ahead. Let's get into the dumpster fire that is right now the Cleveland Browns, because so you make this trade, right, for Deshaun Watson, for a guy who hasn't even been essentially cleared yet, right? Like, yeah, he got cleared from the criminal charges, but he still gets all the other lawsuits that are still pending, right? And then, yeah, he got cleared from some of those charges, but now we got to wait for what the punishment that the NFL decides to go ahead and bring on him, which right now it's not looking good, right? I don't know if you guys saw that article I sent you guys last week, where it's just like there was some insiders saying like, I don't see him playing at all, ever.
I told Drew a while back, I was like, I don't think he plays at all this year. And then they talked about like a possible like year suspension, right? Or at least the full 17 games.
Yeah.
But maybe they work it down to 8. But the more this elongates, the more I don't think he's going to play at all.
And then now the Cleveland, they will go ahead and they make the trade for Deshaun, and then you pretty much burnt all bridges with Baker, which he wasn't that great last year. He did definitely hold them back, right?
Yeah.
Like we would all agree that there was some circumstances where Baker's play was holding them back, but he was also injured, right? And he went ahead and he played through those injuries despite having, who did they have as their backup last year? Do you guys even remember? It wasn't Jacoby, because Jacoby just signed this year.
In Miami last year.
So now they have Jacoby, right? And then, do they not think that Jacoby's going to be able to?
Nick Mullins? Did Nick Mullins?
Nick Mullins, the old guy from San Francisco, the guy who I guess he had tied the yardage through his first 4 years in the NFL with Patrick Mahomes and like Derek Carr or whatever, but he also like obliterated like their interception ratio or whatever.
It's not a good ratio.
So like, he had a lot of yards, but he also had a lot of turnovers, and all of those yards came at the end of games when they were already down by 20. So so those statistics, they're kind of inflated a little bit. But I mean, whoever their backup was the backup like that much worse than Baker where they're not going to be able to trust him?
Par, like you wouldn't be able to tell. Like the way you can tell easily though is like, did anyone have this dude on fantasy and Baker? No. So he wasn't effective.
He wasn't a guy that people were going after, right?
He wasn't effective. You know,
they dumped $18.5 million. I think that's the big move. Is they had to dump money.
Well, they didn't dump their entire salary. I still think
they're paying like $3 million or I still think half of it or
Cleveland has to pay them $10 million, and then
it's better than 18.
Hey, guess who game 1 is against?
Who?
It's the Browns against the Panthers.
Okay, so that's
no.
So if he wins the starting job, let's be real. But I mean, Sam Darnold was pretty fucking terrible last year, right? Like
he was. But like Andrew said, it's the second worst offensive line in the league. So
that's another thing too, is that we haven't seen Sam Darnold with an actual offensive line that's all put together. Like, he started Robbie Anderson, and then he had
the Jets didn't do him any favors.
No, the Jets didn't do him any favor because he didn't have any weapons really. They had fucking Frank Gore running wheel routes when you have Le'Veon Bell on the roster.
38-year-old Frank Gore.
Yeah, exactly. So the Jets didn't do him any favors, so I give him that. And then I was thinking when he went to Carolina, I was thinking, okay, maybe they can get something going. He's got Christian McCaffrey. He's got Robbie Anderson. Yeah, that offensive line is still terrible, but they might be able to get something going. But still, even then, there was no sign from Darnold saying that, oh, like there's something there, because even when he was at USC, because I'm a USC fan, I watched all their games, and even at USC, I was like, this guy's not it. Like he just doesn't have that X factor that most quarterbacks have, and we can say that about all at USC quarterbacks, right? From
like the last 10 years.
For the last 10 years, like what was the last USC quarterback that actually was successful in the NFL?
Maybe Carson Palmer. Maybe.
And then like
Sanchez had a little bit of
Sanchez, he had those first couple years.
He had
right?
the loaded teams with the Jets. Though.
Mm-hmm. And then Carson Palmer, even him, like he had like that spell where it was like in his spell like in his 30s where he like produced dick, and he kept getting his like ACL torn and stuff like that.
He was really good early on.
And then he was on the Raiders
with the Bengals. Huh? Yeah.
And then he was on the Raiders. They didn't produce anything on the Raiders, and it took until he got to Arizona with Bruce Arians. That's where his career started to traject up, and then they made the playoffs and stuff like that, and they made that little run. But with Sam Darnold, like there was still nothing there. And do you think that was enough for them to go ahead and just pull the trigger and like, okay, I guess Baker's not as bad or that terrible? Do you think that's kind of their thought process behind that?
Well, yeah, and then you're getting him for cheap, so it's like, well, maybe this will light a fire under Sam Darnold or something, or maybe it'll light a fire under Baker, because he wants to prove the Browns wrong.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, he's always, I guess you can say throughout his entire career, he's always been the guy like with the chip on his shoulder, right?
Yeah, the walk-on.
Yeah, he's like the walk-on. He had to win his spot, and and then even he wasn't even the favorite to win the Heisman. Yeah. Did he win the Heisman?
Yeah,
he won the Heisman, right? And then he was first overall pick by the Browns, and all this other stuff. And then even when he got there, like at the Browns, he never really won his position, right? He never really won that spot. He never won that town over.
No, well, I mean, because you look at that roster and it's loaded. That defensive. It's a defensive team, right?
Yeah.
But if you think about what the weakest position was on that team, you probably say quarterback.
Yeah.
Because they made the playoffs even with him.
Right. He beat Pittsburgh in the playoffs.
He beat Pittsburgh, or Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb beat Pittsburgh?
Well, didn't it start off with a defensive touchdown too?
And then a defensive touchdown,
so I was like,
but he was starting quarterback.
After Myles Garrett decided to almost decapitate Mason Rudolph. That was the year before, right?
Yeah, earlier.
Yeah. Let's go back and talk about that. Not enough people talk about when Myles Garrett decided to assault.
In the middle of a game.
At the end of a game. It was already like the last 30 seconds.
It was throwaway minutes.
Yeah.
I just remember seeing poor Mason Rudolph with the face mask off his helmet. Looked like
he was in the 30s playing with the face maskless.
No, that was when poor Mason Rudolph. That's when he got knocked out by Earl Thomas. Remember he got knocked out by Earl Thomas?
That's right.
He went to throw the ball, and his hand was stuck like that. Yeah. And then he got knocked out. His hand was still like this. He was still...
Poor guy's taking a beating.
Yeah, and then they unscrewed his face mask, and he was walking out like Tobey Maguire in Spider-Man 3, like, hey.
You bring up a good topic now, because I was reading Des Bryant's comments on like, the NFL knows that we're playing with CTE, right? Because the research came back on Demaryius Thomas's brain, but it's like respect and all that to Demaryius Thomas, but like these guys, they know what they're signing up for,
Yeah,
you're getting paid millions of dollars to do something you love, right? And if you don't want to do it, just walk away. Then there's been plenty of guys that have done it the last like 2-3 years that just completely just pick up and walk away. But it's like Des Bryant kind of said it in a way where he's like, like they know, but they're not doing anything about it. But it's like, I mean, what can you do? You're playing a violent sport.
Yeah. I feel like by the time you get to the NFL, I feel by then it's already too late.
Yeah.
You're right. I feel like because most of the guys who are in the NFL, they've been playing their entire lives, right? They've been playing all the way from Pop Warner. I was having this conversation with my brother yesterday because he brought it up about the Demaryius Thomas, who died last year, right? Was it last year or the year
it was
earlier
the end of
this
last year, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was like 6 months ago. Let's say like in that time frame, and and
this past season,
he had CTE, who he pretty much just joins the list, right, of other players who passed away. Like there was a guy who shot up the doctor and his family over in South Carolina. I don't know if you guys remember that story. He had pretty severe case of CTE. Like there's like endless list of guys who are dying young with CTE. I honestly think we're talking about it, and I honestly think a lot of that comes from the time they put in at college. Because think about it, like a majority of these guys, they're going 4 or 5 years of playing college football, which college football is fucking brutal, right? And then not just during the games, but you get the practices where these guys are going 100 miles an hour 6 days a week, and then fucking going on Saturday nights to go play a game, right? And it's just like it's year after year after year of doing that. And then when you get in, a lot of these guys who are playing at the very top level in high school, well, they were playing, at big programs. They're not playing like at some scrub high school where they only practice 4 days out of the week. These guys are putting in work all the way year round, and they're probably the other sport that they compete in is probably track, which they probably just show up at the track meets and just run because they're so athletic. Like they're going year after year of practice after practice. I think that's what needs to change. I think that's
the amount of time that
the amount of time where they're doing full contact practices. Because by the time you get to the NFL, okay, you got your paycheck after you get through your rookie contract. By then, they're not going full contact practices every week.
No, it's like twice a week,
right?
Max,
max. Yeah. If that now, like there's some programs where they get to like week 8 and then they're just doing shells.
The top end guys, like the premier guys, like don't even practice half the time.
No,
like they just show up Sundays.
So I don't think necessarily it's legit like the amount of concussions that you get. I think it's just the repetitiveness
during
of
college,
just like always hitting with your head, and your brain's always fucking shaking inside your skull. So I think that's what necessarily needs to change. And I feel like we've had this conversation before here, where we talked about let's just change the complete landscape of like college football, and just like let's let these guys play college football for 2 years and then go pay for whatever NFL team that they want to play for.
Yeah, you can pretty much tell after 1 or 2 years who's going to make the league.
Exactly.
Like the guys that stand out.
Exactly. Especially like the position like running back. Like when these guys are like 25, 26 and both their knees are blown out.
Yeah.
And they get, by the time they get to the league, their body's like mush, their brain's like mush, and they can't produce. They can't
maximize their full potential,
right? And then they just get stuck on a rookie contract, and that's it. And then and then we talk shit about them holding out, like when Melvin Gordon held out, and everybody,
or then we call them bust, and it's like, but like you don't understand like probably the injury history this guy had, and it's just like we're out here like criticizing
like Todd Gurley, like some of us we fucking complain about taking big shits, and then these guys over here putting their heads on the line, trying to make that extra yards because you fucking drafted me in your fantasy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Still no excuse for Connor Williams being asked.
Stop holding, motherfucker.
Not my problem no more though.
So that's what I mean. It's just like, I know this whole CTE, it's super serious. It's super severe. These guys are dying, dude, right? Like these guys, and then there's countless stories of guys that they talk about. They're like, dude, I don't feel the same anymore. I don't talk the same anymore. My family doesn't even fucking recognize me anymore, right?
But the thing is, like you said, like they've seen the research over the last like 5 to 10 years. It's really been like projected to the limelight for everyone to see, and it's like what you're signing up for.
Yeah,
and there's guys that know what's going on, and they're willing to take the money because a lot of these guys come from backgrounds where they grew up with nothing.
Yeah. So
you give them millions of dollars, they're gonna be like, yeah, I'm gonna take that life over what I had, or what potentially could have like happened.
Yeah.
So it's like, a lot of these guys, I'm willing to bet, like if you poll them, maybe like more than half the league is gonna be like, yeah, I know what's at the end of the road, but this is gonna put. This is generational wealth,
Right.
I'm putting myself and my grandkids in a better situation than what I was in,
I think people really underestimate like how much of a difference it makes for a family to make let's say $10 million versus like $30,000 or $40,000 in a single year.
Yeah.
Right. Like you think about like the difference that makes. Like how many stories of guys that are in the NFL they always go back to their hood because they take care of those guys, or they take care of them. Like what was it, Marvin Harrison? He went back to his hood. I think it was in like Baltimore or something like that. I forgot what sound it was. And then he'd like opened up like a complete street of like small businesses. Like he can completely change this community.
See, and that's the second thing. Like, are you smart with your money?
That's another one.
Because more than I say, what was it, like half the league goes broke like 2 years out?
Yeah.
Because these guys mismanage their money, right? So it's like the second part is like on top of generational wealth. Like, can you sustain it? Can you invest it? Can you secure other forms of income?
Yeah.
So.
That's some sad stuff, especially with a guy like Demaryius Thomas. From all accounts, was a fucking angel on earth, right? Like he was a good dude, and you even watch it with his playing style, right, and the way he played. Like you could always say that he was a guy that he was like willing to give his full effort. Yeah. And there's a bunch of dudes, like even like who was it, like Luke Kuechly, who retired early. Patrick Willis retired early. The guy from the Niners was like Chris Bowman or something like that. Like
the linebacker from Wisconsin.
Yeah, he was just like
he walked away from it. Yeah,
he was like after his like second year in the NFL.
But it's like these guys know, so it's like if you want to do it, you want to walk away. I mean, there's the door. You know, like it's not a bad thing. People, right? I think we've gotten to the point in the football community where it's like. You walk away, well, we understand why.
Respect.
Yeah.
Right.
There's no more like, oh, he's just like soft or he's scared. It's like, okay, he's probably thinking about himself or his family or his health. So whatever, you know.
I'm not gonna lie. When I was younger and I was playing, I had that mentality. It's just like, you quit, fuck you. You're a quitter.
Yeah, but I think like over the last like 5 years now, we've gotten to that to that point where it's like, you know, like we understand because you see the cases now. Right. And you're just like, well, maybe that guy doesn't want to end up like that. So
yeah, they go in, they make their one contract, they make some bank, get out. Yeah. Invest that money, and you're set for life.
And that's what I'm hoping for. That probably changes in the future. I mean, we've talked about it before.
Well, I think it has with college making the NIL available now, so these guys can make money earlier now. So now you're not just on scholarship. A lot of the top end guys, like you're talking about, they're just banging around in college, getting their heads rocked. Right. But now they're actually making money off of it. Yeah. So that's a good thing.
These college
making money legally.
These college programs are making way too much money off these guys.
Well, for years they were doing it for what? Ever since it started.
Centuries. Yeah. Almost 200 years since it started. Right? And they've been making money off of these guys, and it starts.
And the only thing they would dangle over them was like, oh, well, this is your scholarship. This is why you're here.
You were paying for your education.
Yeah, well, right. You get free room and board. Yeah. Like you get to stay on our campus.
It's a professional sport in so many ways.
You're earning your degree in astrology. Like it's gonna be worth it.
Business management. What's the one that everyone does? Communications.
Yeah, you're gonna be a public speaker. Okay, talking to trying to get words out through your CTE. When you're older, that's pretty much what it's going to be.
Dude.
Did I go a little too far?
There was
a
line there, and you sprinted right by it.
I didn't see it. My CTE is starting to flare up.
Stop, bro, stop.
Yeah, those 4 years of high school really
did in on me, dude. Not just that, dude. I like to get smaded and bump my head against the wall whenever I go out.
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
You like getting your head banged around the headboard?
The headboard. That's why my head is flat on the top.
Well, then if we're talking about NIL real quick, then let's jump into the what can we call it? The realignment of college football?
Oh, your boys. The audacity of USC.
USC and Big Ten football.
They want to say the Pac-12 are a bunch of bitches and pussies, and they're like, "Wait, we're gonna go to the Big Ten."
They said we're the cash cow.
We're gonna go win 5 fucking games a year.
They're gonna be. Someone said it the other day. USC is gonna be 8-0 going into a game in against Purdue, who's like 2-6 and lose somehow.
Right. Okay, so what are your... let's give everybody kind of a backstory on that. Go ahead. You go ahead and you take that away.
Well, it's just realignment. It started with Texas OU, right? Mm-hmm. They left the Big 12 for the SEC. Mm-hmm. You know, more money. They're the two biggest cash cows in the Big 12. Took off and left. Took more money. And then now you're starting to see an influx of other programs starting to do it. So now it's the two biggest draws in the Pac-12, USC and UCLA. They bounced out. And now they're going to the Big Ten. Mm-hmm. So it's like, how many more of these schools are going to be just like relocating to a different conference, and how big are these conferences going to be? Because you're just plucking dudes from other conferences, you know? And then, so now what does the Pac-12 do? You know, they had conversations with a couple of schools.
Talk to Fresno State and Boise.
I mean, you can, right?
Oh, dude, can't wait.
There was like a meeting that Fresno State did confirm that they met with Pac-12 officials. Yeah. But, I mean, now I heard today like the ACC wants to have a joint conference with the Pac-12. Like the coastal ones, right? So the East Coast with the ACC and now the Pac-12 on the West Coast, right? And then potentially having a championship game in Vegas. So it's like
I wouldn't mind that, but it's, once a year.
But like, what is the point of naming the conferences what they are now? Because now everyone's just everywhere. Like you're gonna have Big Ten football, right? And all the teams are pretty much Midwest to upper Midwest, right, in the northern part of the country. Yeah, and then you got two Cali teams out here. Just we're gonna go play Ohio State.
You think the paradigm's kind of switching a little bit, like when it comes to college football? Because I mean, we already got complaints of the college football stratosphere in the early 2000s, right? When it was just like
the BCS, right?
BCS. Let's get a playoff system in, and then they do, and then it kind of doesn't really work out because we kind of get the same exact result that they did before. Now it's just like, let's toss these conferences out the window. Everybody plays whoever. I think let's make it more of a spectator sport.
I think that's where eventually it's going to lead to, because there's going to be too much like realignment to where it's going to make any kind of sense. Yeah. So it's like, what? Like people are going to be like, really? Why is USC in the Big Ten when they got to travel all the way to Piscataway, New Jersey to play Rutgers? You know? Right. Which is clear across the country. You know, so it doesn't make any sense. Yeah. And so I think, like you said, we get to that point somewhere down the line where just no conferences, everyone just kind of plays each other, and you pick the top. What? Right now it's 4 teams, right? And eventually I think it gets to 8 or 12.
Right. I mean, you could always just do like, hey, let's do like 6 or 7 exhibition matches, right? Like exhibition games, and then you just pick the top 8 teams, and then you have a playoff system across the country, right?
Yeah, well, I think like every year you kind of know who the top 5 teams are, you know, that are gonna contend for it. Because like once you start teetering off that like 6-7 range, you're like, all right, well, we've seen you get scraped. Like we don't want to watch you play. Yeah, that's true. Let's just watch the top 5 or 6 teams.
But you could always like squeeze in. So like a year, like if fucking Georgia Tech is like 10-0 or like 8-0, like okay, we'll give you your shot. Get in there, get in the playoffs, and see what you can do.
They always bring up. Always bring up like the NCAA, the March Madness tournament. They're like, oh, like any small school can beat a big school.
In college football,
college football is completely different. Like you can tell,
just like, based off of athleticism.
Fresno State, as great as a season that I want them to have, or they can have, is not going to go into Alabama and just shock them. Right? You know. Yeah. Like they might be able to compete for
a bit. You never know. You might get the one year where there's a complete upset and somebody makes a run.
But the thing is, like,
that makes it worth it, right?
When have we really seen it though? You know?
Yeah, that's true.
It's not like you see it. I'm not saying it's impossible. Like it can happen, but like I'm saying it's less frequent with college football.
Right. But that's some interesting stuff, man. I really want to see, especially what comes out of this, because there's aspects of it to where like, okay, this can lead like a certain way. I mean, if we get like this, like what you said, like this open conference thing, especially in college football, I feel like that's going to be awesome. And we're going to get to see these college programs that never really played each other before, and we're going to see some of these big games, especially all across the country. And if college football is kind of going on the downhill a little bit, especially with all the CTE stuff coming out, I feel like college football is going to take a majority of the hit when it comes to CTE. I think if when you actually break down the numbers, you break down the science, I feel like they're going to take a blunt of the force, because they're not the ones bringing in most of the money. No, the NFL is.
The NFL is.
You know. Thanks for coming by, OC, man. This was good.
Yeah, it feels good to be back, man.
Good to have the
O and the D.O.G back right in the middle between the D and the G. just sitting in there, snuggling with us, nice and comfy. But yeah, man. Hopefully, when the NFL season gets going, we'll have you back a little bit more often.
Oh yeah.
Right now, training camps
about 10 days away.
A few days, 10 days away. It's going to be interesting to see, especially how this Baker Mayfield stuff plays out, man. This is that was wild, and I'm still waiting to see the notification that Jimmy got traded. I don't know where he's going to go now. It ain't
happening for you, bro. Sorry.
Poor guy. But yeah, man. Anything else you want to add?
No, that's it. Just wanted to stop on by
and share your bless us with your knowledge about the NFL.
Somewhat, whatever I know, off the top of my head.
Oh yeah, dude, I could always count on you. Drew, anything else you want to add, man?
Nah, man, I just sat here.
Just enjoyed OC's knowledge along with Noel.
College football about 7 weeks away, so
it's almost there, man. Are we gonna go to some games this year?
Oh yeah,
we're going to USC, right?
Yeah,
USC Fresno State.
USC Fresno State, 100%, man.
September what?
17th.
All right,
I'm gonna get so drunk.
You did it last time too.
I make myself look like a fool.
No Henny this time, please.
Oh, what was it when I was like had the Henny in the Coke bottle, and I was like, Drew, hey, try some. He's like thinking, oh, it's Coke. What the hell is that?
I did not spit it out.
He's all this. That was like 90% Henny. And I was like, you trying to have some fun?
The ratio was a little skewed there.
I remember on the way there, I was drinking Henny and Bang mixed because I was tired. I had worked the day before.
I remember that you made us walk like 4 miles to the stadium through the campus.
Oh yeah,
because I didn't want to pay for parking.
Yeah, he said what? This is a shortcut.
Yeah, we could have had the Uber.
It was like 4 miles.
We Ubered there. And
we Ubered there.
And
that's
you
right.
Still had us park, get dropped off 3 miles away.
It's fun times, man.
You're like, let's walk through the campus.
Who knows, man? Maybe next time we'll fucking vlog it. We'll see what happens. And we'll post it on the podcast.
Oh, for sure.
All right, for those of you guys watching at home, thanks for joining us. Thank you, OC, for joining us. And we'll see you guys all in the next video. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Peace.